Yo,
What's the deal, man? What's going on?
what's good? What's good? We are
What
back
up, dude?
after a nice little break. You know what I'm saying? We're back. It is the season 4 premiere of Mid Carter's and Catering Podcast. It is AJ. We got Aunt P and we got Corey Woods in the house. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
What's good
Lord,
with y'all?
Yeah, we had to start this one off pretty. I'll let you say it, AJ.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I just wanted, you know what I'm saying? Again, I just want to check your temperature, make sure everything was good, everything's copacetic. I mean, like I said, we've been off for a little bit, about 2 weeks, but it felt like longer than that, you know what I'm
It
saying?
felt like
But
it felt like a month, man. It did
yeah,
feel like a month or so, but
yeah, but we needed that break after all that, 1 year catching up and everything, and then launching the Patreon and everything like that. But we'll get into all of that later on down the line. Like I said, we got Corey Woods in the house. What's up, Corey?
what's good? What's good?
Hey,
How y'all been doing?
oh, can't complain, man. Can't complain. Just ready to get back into the mix of things again. But
yeah,
like you
Ain't
said,
nothing wrong with that.
oh yeah, definitely. But like we said, it's the season 4 premiere of Mid Carters and Catering, and we kind of got a real special treat for our listeners. You know what I'm saying? This is something that we kind of like had in the mix for a while. You know what I'm saying?
you
We
can't even
wanted
hold
to
his
bring it.
smile in. Look at him,
We,
man.
we
That man is excited
Kinda
right
crazy,
now.
bro.
Teasing.
we've been working on this for a minute and everything, but Ant and Corey both have already had brief moments before with this individual that we about to bring on right now. It's a real special episode. We want to be able to get this voice to our listeners at the same time. So I guess, man, like without further ado, man, we gotta bring him on. We gotta bring on this legend. You know what I'm saying? This architect,
Hall of Famer.
this Hall of Famer,
Hall of Famer.
WWE Hall of Famer, the guy who was running the show at WCW, none other than Eric Bischoff.
Ah, the crowd. How you guys doing today?
What's going on, man? I'm good. How are you doing?
We're doing great. Another beautiful, however frigid day in Wyoming. It's about 10 degrees outside, but the sun's shining. We got about 6 inches of fresh snow, so it's all
What?
Oh man,
Yeah.
he's saying a
You know-
word I'm trying to hear right now. Oh my
You know
god,
what?
Actually, there's over the snow.
Bizarre is last week at this time it was 74 degrees. I'm outside my property with my dog, just running around having fun. And about 4 days later, man, blizzard hits, and here we are. It's January all of a sudden.
oh wow. So that's it's funny you bring up the snow thing because first of all, you're from Detroit originally. So being that you're talking about fresh coat of snow and everything like that, it's almost like I'm used to this. This just reminds me of home and everything of that matter. So over here we just got teased with one last day of like 70-degree weather, and then all of a sudden we just got to drop off the next day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like that snow that just blew through your neighborhood and everything. It's just slowly creeping its way over to us eventually. But
Yeah, it's really cool though, because like I said last week, it was like beautiful fall. You know what I mean? The colors of the leaves on the trees and they're full color. It was absolutely gorgeous. And now we've got 6 inches of snow and leaves on the trees that are in full color. And so it's actually beautiful. It's just, I'm just not quite ready for the cold.
yeah.
Yeah, me neither, man. But so what's been going on, man, since the last time we talked? I think it's been like a couple years, I believe.
It's
Was
been
it a couple
definitely
years?
A couple years.
Yeah.
Wow. Not much, man. I'm rolling pretty slow nowadays. I don't have a lot of projects that I'm doing. Of course, the podcast is doing well. I added another podcast, Strictly Business, which is a part of what we do here, and that's doing really well. I have fun doing that because all we talk about is the business of the wrestling business. We don't get into creative or who screwed whose wife or who screwed who out of a top spot, or we don't get into that typical nonsense. We just talk about the business of the business. And this week, it just dropped last night. I had a guest on by the name of Adi Shankar. Now, that might not be a name that you're familiar with, but you will be in the next several years to come. Adi was like the youngest producer ever to have a North American box office hit with a movie called The Gray, starring Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson about the wolves and the
Yeah,
plane crash. Yeah, I know what you're
he produced that. And he's got a new series out now on Netflix. It's an adult animation, and it's not like porn animation. And whenever I say adult animation, it's like, well, what that is. What's Bischoff into now? But let me see. I always get the name mixed up, so I want to make sure I get it right. It's oh damn, what'd I do with that? Oh, I feel like a knucklehead. Hold on, bear with me.
Got you.
Take your time.
I mean, we got all day, right?
Yeah, we
yeah.
do. Yeah, we
I'm not
do.
doing anything. Captain Laserhawk. That's right, Captain Laserhawk. And it's kind of a futuristic sci-fi thing, but it was so cool. And I actually, I did this interview with Adi. I had never met him before. I'd never talked to him. But Diamond Dallas Page reached out to me and said, hey, I have this friend. His name's Adi. Told me a little bit about him. He's got a new series coming out on Netflix. Would you have him on your show and just to help give him some publicity? I said, sure, man. Anything to help a friend out or a friend of a friend, I'm happy to do that. So I scheduled it, and then I got up early in the morning the day I was going to do the interview. I think on Wednesday or Thursday. I think, I better watch this Captain Laserhawk thing so I know what the hell I'm talking about. And it blew me away. It was so badass. Now I think I'm hooked. I think I'm actually a fan of that style of animation. It's kind of like a combination of, it's got kind of like that Japanese anime vibe to the animation, but the story and the voice, so everything was so cool. And Cody Rhodes is featured in it as well as Kenny Omega. So
that was the show.
Wrestling connection.
Okay.
So guys, check it out if you will.
Okay, yeah, because I did see like article about that. I didn't know what show it was, so that's the show. Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
And then talking to this cat, he's only like 26, 28. I don't know how old he is. Not very old, but he is so smart and so creative and talented. It was like one of the coolest interviews I've ever done, just because he's such a unique guy.
So Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega are going to have voice acting duties on this show?
Well, no, they're actually characters. Like Cody Rhodes has this really cool animated character in the first episode. I haven't seen the rest of the episodes yet. I'll catch up on some probably tomorrow. But and then Kenny Omega is in episode 3, but he's an animated version of his real character.
Okay. So he's like the cleaner. He's the cleaner in this, or just his gimmick all together, pretty much.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. The first episode had me hooked. I'm not going to give away the finish, but the finish involving Cody Rhodes at the end of the first episode was fucking mind blowing.
So just to even more to jump into the whole TV and movie and everything like that, just to step away from the wrestling side of things for a second, like how was like your time producing television and also tapping into video games at the same time too? Like just in case some of our listeners didn't know of like the many credits that you have outside of wrestling.
Yeah, no, I had a partner by the name of Jason Hervey, and we formed a company called Bischoff Hervey Entertainment back in, I think, 2002 or something like that. And my partner, Jason, grew up in Hollywood. He was a star on the ABC series. You guys are probably too young to remember it, but it's called The Wonder Years.
Oh, no, I remember The Wonder Years.
I am the Wonder Years.
He was the older, meaner brother, right?
Yeah.
But Jason had grown up. He first started doing, I think he started doing commercials over in Japan, believe it or not, when he was 4 years old. And then by the time he was 6 or 8 years old, he's doing movies and television shows and all kinds of stuff. And then eventually, he did like Pee-wee's Funhouse and all kinds of Pee-wee Herman movies. And he did some cool shit.
Yeah.
But I met him through wrestling, and just fast forward a couple of years, and we said, hey, why don't we create a production company of our own? Between Jason's contacts in Hollywood, because he had a lot of great contacts. Mm-hmm. His family had been in the entertainment business for like 2 generations. So we had access to a lot of people, and we could get meetings pretty easily. I had a fairly decent, Rolodex connections in Hollywood. So between the two of us, we figured, why not give it a try? And we did. And for about 7 years, we were rocking it. We produced, it was all unscripted stuff, well, almost all of it. And that was like when reality television was really just blowing out, doing great. Anybody with a half-assed idea could sell a reality show at that point. But we had some good ones, and we made a lot of money. And it was interesting for me, but to be really honest about it, I didn't really enjoy the work. It was just, I enjoyed the money, but that's what it was all about. I didn't feel fulfilling from a creative point of view. It was very fulfilling from a transactional point of view, because our job was to sit back and have a couple beers and go, okay, what if we create a show that fill in the blank? Yeah. And you take an idea from just an idea bouncing around your head, then you have to reduce it to paper, and then you have to refine it, and then you present it and hopefully sell it. I liked that process of just coming up with ideas and trying to figure out how to sell them. But once we sold them and it was time to go in and do the work wasn't nearly as interesting as professional wrestling. I wasn't fulfilled by the work. I was just fulfilled by doing the process of doing the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's funny you brought up Jason Hervey's name, and it's like I really want to ask if one of those shows happened to be Scott Baio gets married or something like. Okay,
we did Scott Baio. We did Scott Baio as 45 and single, and then we did Scott Baio as 45 and pregnant, because Scott got married and his wife ended up getting pregnant. So we got 2 seasons out of that. And then we did another series with Scott. Now, this one was scripted. It was a scripted series called See Dad Run.
Okay.
So, I mean, that was fun. It was fun to do a scripted series because I'd never been involved with one before. And, you learn. And it's, I love doing projects where I learn something new. So that was a fun one. But, the TV business sucks. It used to be fun, but it's gotten so corporate and so risk adverse that it's more like working for a bank than it is working in Hollywood, which used to be a really super creative. People would take risks. That's how you get good shit is, you can't come up with something no one's ever done before if everybody's afraid to take a chance. And
absolutely.
That's exactly what Hollywood has become.
Well, speaking of like taking chances, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, as if like you took a chance on yourself, right? Because like back in 1994, like you became the executive producer and like senior vice president of WCW at the time, and like before all of that, you had to start off in AWA. So like, what exactly like how did that all come to be like in AEW and I'm sorry, AWA. AW.
Yeah,
so many W's.
You know what, AJ? I never had any desire to get into the professional wrestling. I was a fan of professional wrestling, but the idea of becoming involved in the business never. I first started watching wrestling when I was a kid growing up in Detroit. I watched big time wrestling on CKLW, Channel 9 out of Windsor. And that's where I first started watching it. I'm watching Sheik and Crusher and God, who are some of the other ones that I remember? I think it was Ivan Putski came through that territory a couple times. But that's why, I was a kid growing up, and that's where I first fell in love with it. And then I left Detroit, moved to Pittsburgh, didn't have any friends, but I had professional wrestling. So I could, but I was shocked because when I moved to Pittsburgh, I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean Bruno Sammartino's the heavyweight champion of the world? Because he wasn't the heaveweight champion of the world in Detroit, right? Right. And this is before cable and internet, obviously. This was before
This
was before push button phones, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So, I figured it out. And then, I fell in love with wrestling in Pittsburgh and moved to Minneapolis, and same thing happened. But in Minneapolis, when I was like 15, I moved to Minneapolis from Pittsburgh. And the big dog there was Vern Gagne. in the AWA. So I became a fan of that. Got to meet Vern Gagne when I was in high school and after high school. I wrestled in high school, and I also wrestled in Greco-Roman freestyle amateur wrestling, AAU wrestling. And Vern was very much a supporter of amateur wrestling. So I had this idea for a game. I had a friend, partner, Sonny Ono. Sonny and I got drunk one night where we were sitting in a bar after a karate tournament and came up with this crazy idea for a game called Ninja Star Wars. And we designed the game, and I had like 3,000 of them manufactured over in Korea and then had them shipped back. We thought, okay, we're going to be millionaires. This is going to be great. So the games all got delivered to the United States, and we went, well, shit, how are we going to sell these things? Great idea, fun game. No idea how to market them at all. Yeah. So we tried a couple things, did some in-store demos at malls and things like that. And people loved the game. It was a good game. But we had so many of them, we didn't know what to do with them. So I thought, wait a minute. I'm going to call Vern Gagne, because I know if I say, hey, Vern, you don't remember me. My name's Eric Bischoff, but I wrestled at Minnetonka Senior High School, and I wrestled on the AAU freestyle Greco-Roman team. He might take my call. So I what the hell? I got nothing to lose. All he's going to do is say no. Yeah. Doesn't cost me a dime. Heard it before. It's free. People tell you no all the time.
Oh, of course.
So I called him up and did my pitch, and he said, sure, come on down. So I went into Vern's office, and it was like 8 or 10 people sitting around this big long table, and I took out the game. The game was essentially 2 felt vests with a little Ninja Warrior silkscreen on the front. And this is back like during the Karate Kid thing, right?
Okay.
So we had the headband, like the Karate Kid headband, but we had a real thin plastic eye protector.
Okay.
And then you get 3 red stars and 3 white stars. And the stars were, about as big around as my fist, but they were Velcro, and they were weighted down in the middle with a little washer or something. So there was enough weight to it. It was padded, safe. Yeah. And you basically chase each other around. So if I get my 3 stars on you before you get your white stars on me, I win. It's like ninja tag is what it was. So we're chasing each other
ninja
around.
Laser tag.
Yeah. Only this was before lasers. Yeah. So we're playing this game, and everybody loved it. I did the deal with Vern. We started advertising the game on his wrestling show, because back then he was on Monday through Friday at ESPN from like 4 to 5 o'clock or 5 to 6 o'clock, whatever it was in the East Coast. And it did all right. But I got a phone call from somebody that worked in Vern's office and said, hey, Vern would like you to come down. We want to talk to you. Okay, I'm either in trouble or this is going to be fun, one way or the other. Yeah. And I sat down, and they offered me a job to come in and work in sales for the AWA. And honestly, on the way down there, it never crossed my mind that they'd actually offer me a job, because it's just, I just didn't think it was possible. Yeah. But they offered me a job, and 48 hours later, I had an office, and I'm working in the professional wrestling business. It was really just being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. Because how many years did it take for you to get from that? Because I think if my memory serves me correctly, you were like a kind of like a backstage interviewer, like talking with talents and everything like that. So it's like, how many years of that? Excuse me. How many years of performing in that way did it take for you to get to WCW?
Well, what's interesting, AJ, is I wasn't hired to be an on-camera person. I was hired to do what they called sales, syndication. And syndication was nothing more. When they hired me to be in charge of syndication, I didn't even know what syndication meant. Right. I didn't even know what it meant. I just said, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Sales is sales. It doesn't matter. It's
right.
all the same thing. You just have to learn, what you're selling. But my job was to take the program that he produced, and convince independent television stations around the Midwest to carry his show, either on a Saturday or Sunday. And we weren't getting paid for it at the time. It was called a barter deal, where we would give them the show for free. They would keep 6 minutes of commercial time. We would keep 6 minutes of commercial time, which enabled Vern to use that show to promote wrestling events in that local market. And that's how territories made their money. Nobody was paying for, there were no licensing fees back then.
Right.
More often than not, a promoter like Vern or even Vince McMahon Sr. would pay a television station to carry their show. It's completely reversed now, but back then, you just wanted to get your show on the air so you could promote your monthly or weekly live events. That's where promoters made their money. So that was my job. And I did that. I was excited to do that. I had no desire to be on camera. It just never even occurred to me. And one day I'm sitting in my office doing my thing, and there's a knock on my door. In comes, I think it was Greg Gagne for his son. And Greg said, yeah, come on back to the studio, because on that particular day, we had like 40 to 60 wrestlers that all flew in on a Tuesday, and they'd spend all day and half the night doing these individual promos, interviews, promoting coming next week. We're going to be in Milwaukee. And they coming next week. We're going to be in Minneapolis. Coming next week. We're going to be in Rockford, Illinois. You do the same promo over and over and over again for every market, right?
Yeah.
And so they flew all these wrestlers in, and it was a big deal. But the announcer at the time, the Mean Gene Oakland of the time, his name was Larry Nelson. And Larry was good, but Larry loved to drink. Loved to drink.
Oh,
and he had like 2 or 3 DUIs or DWIs, whatever you call them.
Yeah.
And he got popped the night before on a Monday night. He got popped and he was in jail and he couldn't make it to do the interviews on Tuesday. And so Greg comes into my office and goes, you have your sport coat with you? I said, sure. It's hanging on the back of the door. I always keep one in the office in case I got to dress up in a hurry. He goes, how about a tie? Have you got a tie? I said, yeah, there's one right here in my drawer. I keep it just in case. So I threw on my tie, threw on my sport coat, went back to the studio, and there's Vern, standing there, and there's like 40 to 60 wrestlers all standing around looking at me. I was the new kid on the block. I was like the geek, office geek, right?
Yeah.
And Vern says, okay, so here's what we're going to do, kid. You're going to stand there in front of the camera. You've seen Gene Oakland, right? You know how he did. So, yeah, we're going to count you down. It's going to be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. And then they're going to point to you. When they point to you, then you just do the promo. I said, what?
Oh, shit.
He said, it's very simple. You just run down the card, tell them what time it is, tell them where they can buy their tickets, and you got to do that in about 30 seconds. I said, all right. So once you get going, you'll see the cameraman. He's going to count you down. When you start shaking his fist, that means you got 10 seconds. And then 5, 4, 3, 2. But you got to get all that stuff in 30 seconds. Or sometimes they were a minute, sometimes they were a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Depending on if I was having an interview with talent or not. I said, okay, let's do it. So I'm standing there with Larry Zbyszko. He was my very first interview with Larry Zbyszko. And I'm standing next to him. And the cameraman's giving my countdown. He gives me my cue. Keep in mind, there's all these wrestlers standing around watching the new kid, right? I'd never done this shit before. I'd never thought about doing it before.
It's no training, no nothing. They just pulled you out of sales and threw you in front of a camera.
I'm sitting behind my desk drinking a cup of coffee, selling shit, and the next thing I know, I'm standing in front of a camera. So Larry's standing next to me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. And I go, eh. I forgot what I was supposed to say. Larry bends over. I mean, he's just about ready to fall down. He's laughing so hard. I look up and there's 40 to 50 wrestlers who are laughing right along with him. Yeah. I'm thinking, what the hell did I do this for? But I got through it. I eventually got, not that day. I sucked at it all day long. And what should have been a 12-hour day ended up being about 18 hours because I sucked. And then, of course, those 40 to 60 wrestlers were so thrilled to have to sit around there that much because I was so bad at my job. But actually, the next day, Sergeant Slaughter, Larry Zbyszko, a couple other guys said, okay, look, we're going to work with you. They came back to the studio and they hung out and they said, let us help you learn how to do this.
Right.
And I worked on it and I got to the point where I could get through it in a reasonable amount of time. It was really bad, but it wasn't horrible because they were going to hire somebody to replace me anyway. I was just a temporary fill-in, right? So they hired this other guy, believe it or not, he sucked worse than me. He was really, really, really bad. And that didn't work. So then I did it again a couple weeks later because they hadn't found anybody yet. And they found another guy, and I was grateful. I was like, man, I don't want to be out here. I don't want people laughing at me. I'm no good at this shit. I don't need it. I'm going to go back to my office and sell shit because I'm good at that. And they brought in another guy, and he lasted about 2 or 3 weeks, and then they got rid of him. And then finally, they just brought me in and said, let's just figure it out. Well, eventually, he'll get good at it.
Yeah.
And I got to be decent. And then they had me starting to do play-by-play, and I was actually much better at play-by-play than I was holding a stick. And I had fun doing play-by-play. I enjoyed it. It was easy for me, easy to learn. And so that whole thing, I was started about 87, maybe early 88. And by 1991 is when I first went to Turner. So it took a couple of years of learning how to do that stuff. Doesn't come overnight.
So if we like fast forward a little bit, because the way you described it, the way you just got thrown in front of the camera. So you fast forward to like 1997, which is when I was 10 years old at the time. So this is like really my first introduction to like, I mean, of course I saw wrestling before, like maybe like my uncles were watching it or whatever, but I legit didn't become a fan of wrestling until I was about 10 years old. And you fast forward to 1997, like how you just said, like, yo, they threw me in front of a camera, no training. I was whatever, dribbling over words and everything like that. I cannot tell any of that because by the time I saw you in WCW and the NWO doing commentary, because I believe y'all came on at 8 o'clock our time. So
Right.
by because y'all were live and WWE was pre-taped. So which came on at 9 o'clock. So I already knew, like, okay, at 8 o'clock, the NWO is going to be on TV, like, period. You know what I'm saying? So I go in to watch it. And then the first thing I see Hall, I see Nash, I see Hogan. And then I see you, and I'm just like, who is this guy? Like this guy right here. This whole time, I don't know. Like, oh, this is guy actually runs the company the entire time. Like, you were really like my introduction to an authority figure in terms of like storylines and everything like that. And it's just so funny, like, again, like hearing like, like you didn't have, like, you seemed completely comfortable at that time. Like,
Well, it was 10 years later. I
yeah,
had a long time to get comfortable. I think no matter what it is, if you do it consistently and you put some effort into it, even a little bit of effort over 10 years, you figure it out, and I got good at it. I mean, I know I was a good character. I was actually a great character, actually, but it took time, and went through my WCW thing and ended up working in WWE as a general manager. And I actually got better there, because it was a different way of producing and the expectations were different. And I had to stick to a script, which I had never done before. I'd never worked with a script in WCW, but in WWE, I'd show up and I'd go, okay, here's your scripts for tonight. What? Now I got to learn how to memorize shit. Okay, I'll figure that out too. Yeah. But I actually got better at it. I got better direction from them. Kevin Dunn was a great director. Vince was helpful. Bruce Pritchard became one of my best friends, and he was really good at helping me develop inside of WWE and get used to their way of doing things.
Now, could we?
You didn't ad-lib any of that?
I'm sorry, bud?
I said you didn't ad-lib any of that WWE stuff? Like none of that was your own?
No, that was all scripted for me. Every once in a while, I'd make a very small change, if they had like words in there that I just would never say, I would bring that to their attention. But there were like little minor changes. But no, that was all scripted for me, and I had to memorize the script and make it feel like it was ad-lib or improv.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you were still Eric Bischoff. So everybody was like, I think even in WWE, everybody was expecting you to go off, not on some shoot type things, but just to like do the things that Eric Bischoff did, like in WCW, like going, like just, I don't know, doing things to annoy the crowd and everything of that matter.
Yeah, and I did, but it was written for me. I wish, and don't get me wrong, I loved every single minute than I spent in WWE. There was never a minute in WWE. Well, there was one. Yeah. That Mae Young thing.
Oh man.
Horrible.
Oh man. Yeah.
That Mae Young thing was horrible. I didn't enjoy that. But other than that, you know, I really enjoyed every minute in WWE, but it would have been fun and interesting if I would have had the freedom to go ahead and improv a little bit. And I did with Steve Austin, working with Steve Austin, because Steve was very unique in WWE because he was the only talent that they didn't script. Now they tried to. They would hand him a script. He'd look at it, go, okay, got it, thanks. You know, and then he'd go out and do what he was going to do.
Steve things.
When I was working with Steve, they would hand him a script, they'd hand me a script, and I'd see what he was going to do with his. And I knew he wasn't even reading, he wasn't looking at it.
Yeah.
Because he knew what had to be done. He would have the experience. It's like, very well, hell with it. If he's not going to stick to his script, I'm not going to even worry about mine. So we both got to go out there and improv because it was Steve. And that was a blast.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Because at that time it was probably because I remember the 2002 thing, like it's probably one of my favorite moments between you and Steve. But also it was when Steve was the sheriff and you were the general manager.
I mean, it's silly when you think about it, right? It was just silly shit, but Steve was so good at it. His character was so on the money, and he knew that character so well, and he was having fun.
Yeah.
You know, we had so much fun working together that it worked because we were having fun. Yeah. There's no way the audience could sit back and watch him and I in the ring doing our shit and not have fun because we were having fun.
Yeah.
I'll say one of the things that I'm gonna give you credit for is like how you just didn't break out into laughter just doing this with Steve Austin, because I don't even know like how that even possible for me. It's like, and I'm just looking at you. I was just looking. I'm like, how is he doing this?
It was probably the hardest part of it all. It's like because he'd just come up with that shit. Like I didn't know it was coming. You know, if I knew it was coming, I could prepare for it, but I didn't know what was coming. And sometimes it was so funny. You're right, man. I had beer coming out my nose and blowing beer out my ears. I mean, it was like crazy.
But before even if that, like, you know, maybe like, can we acknowledge maybe like in some other universe, right, that had you stuck with like being a commentator, so to speak, like maybe at some point you probably went the Michael Cole route. You might have called a few WrestleManias by now or something like that.
I wasn't that good at that. I mean, that's especially in WWE because that's a different thing. You know, you've got a director in your ear. You know, and I actually don't like the way Michael Cole's an amazing talent. Do not get any of this wrong. Anybody that's listening to this. I put Michael Cole on a very, very high pedestal because I know how difficult it is for him to do his job the way WWE wants him to do it.
Yeah.
I like play-by-play. I'll give you an example. I'm not a huge basketball fan. You know, I like the playoffs and stuff like that, but you know, I don't sit down and watch basketball for the sake of watching basketball.
Yeah.
And I don't have any kids in school. I don't have any grandkids in school. I don't have any nephews, no family at all in school. But here in Wyoming, where I live, a little town called Cody, they have a play-by-play announcer. His name was Cole Havens. And he's so good that I'll go out of my way to listen to him cover boys and girls basketball, high school, because he's so good at it. He makes me feel like I'm actually in the auditorium. And it's just the way he does it. And same thing with baseball. I'm not really a baseball fan. I'll watch the World Series. I'll check it out tonight. First game, sure, no problem. Or last night was the first game. But I'm not going to go out of my way. But when the local sports guy here in town covers it because he's so good at doing it, I'll listen to high school boys baseball and girls softball because he's that good at it. And I believe that play-by-play should – Vern Gagne described it to me when he was trying to teach me initially was my job as a play-by-play announcer He said, imagine you're describing everything that's going on around you in detail for a blind person that's a wrestling fan.
Wow.
And part of that is, and this is an example, right, is when you sit down there and because I have the best seat in the house. Theoretically, I'm at ringside doing play-by-play.
Right.
He said, describe the smell in the air. Do you smell popcorn? Do you smell beer? Do you smell caramel corn? What are the smells? What's the environment? Describe the people that are around ringside and the looks on their faces. So bring the viewer at home, even though they're watching, bring them in so they feel like they're actually in the arena and not watching at home. And then he said, when you call the action, you're a fan. Don't try to be smart. Don't try to get yourself over. Just call the action and bring the passion to it that a fan would have if they got an opportunity to be sitting at ringside doing play-by-play. And if you can bring that kind of excitement to it and describe the entire scene and environment so someone at home can actually smell the popcorn with you, that's how you do good play-by-play. And that's not what WWE wants. It's old school. Go back and listen to old school, radio covering sports. When I was a kid growing up in Detroit, my dad and I listened to the Sonny Liston, back then, Cassius Clay Fight on the radio, which is why I still love listening to sports on radio, because it's just different. It's covered differently. And I love it. But Michael Cole doesn't get to do that. He does a different style. And I couldn't do that. I wouldn't have any fun doing that. And if I'm not having fun doing it, it'll suck.
Totally get that. Totally get it. So you talked about a fan perspective. So I kind of want to get this fully loaded question out the way. Because I think it's a question, of course, to ask for you who was deeply rooted into the business, you know what I'm saying? Like, just on the current landscape of pro wrestling and sports entertainment right now, from being a fan to being a former executive in the business, like, how do you feel about the current landscape of everything right now?
AJ, I'm more of a fan of the business of the wrestling business. I've seen a fair amount of wrestling in my life, from being a kid growing up in Detroit to being in the business for over 30 years.
Yeah.
So the things that happen in the ring are not nearly as interesting to me as the things that are happening behind the scenes, the business of the business. And to see where professional wrestling is today, WWE being sold for $9 billion, it's a publicly held company. They're putting on massive events now all over the world. There are wrestling fans all over the world now. And I love that. I think wrestling is more popular than it's ever been around the world. Perhaps there aren't as many people viewing it today in the United States as maybe there were during the Monday Night Wars. I don't know. You can debate that because of streaming and all the other shit, but it doesn't have the same vibe as it did back in the late 90s. But I think the business is healthier. It's bigger. It's more mainstream. You got Bad Bunny showing up in a WrestleMania. You got Logan Paul coming in. It's just so mainstream now. And then you look at how the talent, the athletes have evolved. I'm seeing things that go back and watch some wrestling from 1980 and then watch something from last night or the night before. It's like mind-boggling, right? So just seeing the evolution of the athletes and the way wrestling is presented, I find to be very interesting, and I feel good about that. There's some things I don't feel good about. Some things I kind of wish were different, but overall, I'm excited for the wrestling business. I think AEW's got a ways to go, like long ways to go. But they're still only, how old are they? 4 or 5 years? It's still a really
2019, I believe. So it's 4 years now.
Yeah, 4 years. I watched the first episode of Dynamite from the writers' room at WWE headquarters in Stamford. I remember that, and I was very hopeful for them. I thought, okay, this is great, because I knew how much competition kind of made everything better.
Yeah.
Made fans more interested. They want something to bitch about and argue about. They love AEW. No, I love WWE. Yeah. Argue about it. Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
That's what they used to call water cooler talk, before social media came along. It's good. It's healthy. But I'm kind of disappointed. They've blown a lot of great opportunities. AEW has, and I did too. You learn on the job. Tony Khan's never run a wrestling company before, just like I never run a wrestling company before. They made me president of WCW. I had never been an executive in a publicly held company. I never had 200 employees before. There's a lot of shit I'd never done before, and you learn on the job. And sometimes you get stuff right, sometimes you don't. And hopefully you learn from those mistakes. You don't repeat them and keep trying to do the shit that works. But it takes time.
But to credit yourself, though, even in that business, like you legit, I mean, WCW, NWA, all of that was already legit contenders of WWE at that time. And then when you took over and you built it up to where it became, like, y'all were legit the competition.
Well, we actually went head to head. That's one of the things that, used to bother me about Tony Khan is, he kept trying so hard to convince himself and other people that he was actually a competitor. He's not. He's just in the same business. It's like me opening up a fucking hot dog stand on the corner of a Ruth Chris steakhouse and saying I'm competing with Ruth Chris.
Right.
No, you got a hot dog stand. Yes, you're both selling food and it's considered meat, but that's it. That's not competition.
Right. Exactly. And like, cause that's been at least for me, that's been one of my main gripes with this, with what they like to call the tribalism of this whole WWE AEW thing, is that you're not focusing on just building your brand first before you want to call yourself a competitor. Really, like it's really little league or more a glorified indie than anything.
That's right on the money, AJ. I used, whatever I would describe, somebody said, what are your thoughts of AEW? I said, oh man, it's indie-rific. It's just so indie-rific. It's awesome.
And to take back, a lot of them wanted to throw comparisons at the WCW thing. And I'm like, yo, that is an insult to WCW. I'm like, no, like that's not the same thing here. I think you're trying too fast to be a WCW counterpart, but that's not what this is.
No, we were actually like legitimately head to head.
Yeah,
exactly.
And Tony's never been head to head. The only time he was head to head, he got his ass spanked and sent to the corner, told not to come out of his room till he could behave.
Oh man! And
you ever see them going head to head?
No. That'd be horrible.
They would have to deactivate his Twitter account to go head to head because he would spiral worse than what he's doing now. Like I
actually, because I mess with him. I'm honest about stuff. I don't sugarcoat too much. I try to be gentle if it's a very sensitive topic. But for the most part, if you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think. And I did that a lot. But after I started watching Tony melt down on Twitter, like after that last Tuesday night when they went head to head and he lost his shit, I actually felt bad. Because like the night before I went to bed, I said, oh man, we should ease up on Tony because I think he's losing it. And I got up the next morning and I saw some stuff that he had done overnight. And it was like, wow, I might be right. He might like legitimately maybe losing it. And I made up my mind that I was just not going to pile on anymore because I felt legitimately bad for him because I thought he was losing his head. But whatever, it seems to have toned down now for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Like he said, like AJ just said, like I'd rather just him focus on building his company, building stars, and just develop. So maybe one day you can be a competitor. I don't see it, but maybe.
And this is a part that I guess I get frustrated with, and my frustration sometimes comes out to other people that don't know me as me being negative. not negative. I don't have a dog in a hunt, man.
Right.
I don't own a piece of AEW. Don't care. Wouldn't want one right now, to be honest with you. But what upsets me is when people have great opportunities right in front of them and they blow it, or they don't even recognize it, or they don't give it the respect it deserves. Because opportunities are hard to come by. You know, I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I had a certain type of personality at that time. Everything works together. And I was fortunate that way. And I know that I was almost, it was a blessing because I didn't try to do any of it. It just all happened in spite of me, actually. But when you have an opportunity like Tony has, and you don't take advantage of that opportunity, you don't surround yourself with people who know more than you do. That's what the mistake Tony's making is that he wants to be Booker of the Year. He wants to be Vince McMahon. He wants to be what Eric Bischoff was back in the 90s, when WCW was hot. He wants that recognition, but he's not willing to surround himself with people who are smarter or more experienced, not smarter, but just more experienced and more talented than he is in certain aspects of the business. He wants to be the creative guy. He's not.
Yeah.
Like, no one would ever, nor would I let someone hire me to be in charge of finance, because I just know my brain isn't working that way. No matter how much money you offer me, no matter what kind of perks you give me, if you give me that job and I take it, I know it's going to be bad because I'm not talented at that. Different people have different skills. Creative people are generally not that well organized. Creative people are not very analytical. Creative people don't really think about logic. It's like a left brain, right brain kind of gimmick. Just like accountants aren't very good at creative. You can't be good at everything. So know what you're good at, and then don't be intimidated to hire people who are way better than you at the things you're not good at. That's what Tony should be doing.
Yeah.
But instead, he wants to be the guy, and he doesn't know how to craft story. He doesn't have the discipline. He doesn't understand it. He's not good at it. He's good at other stuff probably, but he's not good at that.
I would say he's good at buying indies. He's good at buying other promotions.
I think Tony is very analytical. I think Tony is, and this becomes that left brain, right brain kind of difficulty. I think Tony's super smart. Don't get me wrong. I think he's really, really, really smart. I think he's very analytical, and he can understand analytics and data in ways that I never could. Most people never could. Kind of like Rain Man that way. And people like that really impress me. They can really see pictures. They can look at a set of numbers and they can see a picture in their head.
Yeah.
But he's not good at creative. And that's the part where if you would just find somebody that really understood how to, because that's all he's got to do. He's got all the talents in the world. He's got all the money in the world. He's on a great network. He's got great support from his network. The only thing that's missing is his ability to tell stories and create stories that make people interested.
Yeah.
He does the fantasy wrestling match.
The work shoots.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
I mean, prime example. We got MJF versus Kenny Omega
No
on a
story.
random Saturday. No story.
Why? It's like you say, hey, why don't we book this guy and this guy? Okay, why? What's the reason? What? It's like going to a movie and dropping into the middle of the movie, and you didn't see what set the movie up. You didn't see the first act, so you don't know who the characters are. You don't know how the characters think. You don't know how the characters feel. You have no idea what kind of journey those characters are on. You just pop in the middle of the movie. And that's exactly the way he books.
And then, like, the continuity errors is on the side. You got Wardlow talking about MJF while this is going on.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just like, where, like,
Perfect
should
example.
Wardlow be in this instead of Kenny Omega?
And more than likely, I don't know this is a fact. I'm just guessing here. And I say that not for you guys, but for everybody that's going to listen to this. and all the dirt sheet writers are going to, not all of them, because some of them are really good guys and they do a good job, but some of them are just shit stains, like, like Dave Meltzer.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it.
I would play air
I love
horns right now, but
I love it.
I'm gonna let
they'll pick out
Eric cook.
They'll pick out one thing I say and then blow it up in a headline without listening to the whole thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example, AJ, it's consistency, it's continuity, and it's just understanding how to build and build and build and build and build and build and build till you get to the pay-per-view.
Right.
And then either blow it off or let it grow even more if it's a hot angle. But it's a dream match. He just throws matches together because they're exciting. And I bet you the reason you're looking at MJF and Kenny is because Tony's looking at the ratings and going, oh my God, I'm getting killed. The internet's grilling me to death. So I got to do something big. I'll do a dream match. Nope. No reason for it other than they're two big names.
Would you have given that match away for free TV?
I gave away Bill Goldberg and Hulk Hogan. So
Yeah.
The answer is yes, but I had a story. I wouldn't have done it without a story.
Great question, by the way.
But we had a story in place.
Yeah.
That is. I don't know, man. It's just like all he seems to do is dream match. I got a dream match for you coming up right here. Work, shoot, dream match. It's just, come on, man.
Well, look, this is me trying to be a better person because I know I have to work at that. So it doesn't come naturally. But we'll give him some time.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's learning on the job.
Yeah. I hope he gets a creative guy that will help him with that, and he could just focus on the analytics and the business side of things because this isn't working.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the analytics comes from because he was working in analytics for the Jacksonville Jaguars, correct?
That's what I understand. I've heard that, and that makes sense. It's also a job you could give someone because they can't fuck shit up too badly.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Here, go analyze those numbers and come back and tell me what you think.
Right.
Not talk to the team. Stay away from the coach. I don't care who you want to sign. Just go study those numbers.
Exactly. So, like, while we in AEW, because again, we're talking about like even like different through the time. Like, how do you feel about like all this jumping ships all of a sudden? Like, and I'm not even just saying like, because I mean, of course, it's WWE is always the bigger name of jumping ship too, but we're starting to see a reemergence of TNA. You know what I'm saying? The whole rebranding of TNA just happening now, where it seems like they may be like on the trending upward sooner or later, or of that matter. And we're starting to see like when it, as with AEW, we starting to see people are leaving or people are rumored to be leaving AEW. And then at the same token, it's almost like they're trading like older individuals over to AEW all of a sudden. So like how are you feeling about these moves? So
I think it's pretty interesting. And Jay Cargill, I think, is the most interesting example.
Yeah.
Because Jade showed up first time anybody ever saw her in a wrestling ring was in AEW. I was there when she was working with Cody and Shaquille O'Neal. I was on that show, and I saw her and I went, "Oh my God!" I mean, not in a pervy way, maybe a little. Because she's so young, she's like my daughter's age.
Yeah.
But she doesn't look real. She is so perfect that she doesn't look real. She looks like a walking, talking Marvel character, like right out of a movie or out of a comic book or video game. But she was pretty awkward in the ring because she was green and she was new. Mm-hmm. And they gave her a push. They gave her a lot of wins, the kind of the Bill Goldberg, thing, try to get her over. And then she kind of just fell by the wayside. You didn't hear from her for a long time after that initial push she got.
Yeah.
And the push lasted a while, don't get me wrong, but then she just kind of faded into the background. She leaves because her what does her husband do? Is he
Brandon Phillips, he's a former baseball player. He played for the year, but now he's like a owner of a minor league team, I think.
yeah, and he's also a very wealthy guy. So
Yeah.
Jade didn't need the money, right? And I don't know Jade. I've never had a syllable of conversation with her. But I'm guessing she knew that WWE could make her a star. Whereas in AEW, they didn't know how to make her a star.
Mhm.
They thought by giving her a bunch of wins like Bill Goldberg that she'd be a star. It doesn't work. You need more than that. And so she made that jump. And I'm thinking now I'm thinking, I know exactly what Paul Levesque's doing. He's going to bring her in. He is going to shoot her to the freaking moon. She is going to go on a rocket ride like nobody's been on in a long time. A, because she deserves it.
Mhm.
And B, because Paul is sending a message over to AEW and all that younger talent that watched what happened when Cody Rhodes left AEW. And then he went on a rocket ride. Now Jade Cargill left AEW and she's about to go on a rocket ride. So if you're a young talent in AEW and you haven't even been on TV in 6 months, your check's showing up, you're getting paid, but you haven't been on TV. And you're seeing some of the people that you work with and going on rocket rides every week. What do you think that's going to do? There's going to be a whole bunch of that young talent that every time their contract is going to come up. Now, there'll be some that'll go, I just want the money. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Trust me, I've done that before and I would do it again under the right circumstances. But if your goal when you're young is to be a star, who are you going to bet on? Are you going to bet on WWE to make you a star? Or are you going to bet on Tony Khan to make you a star?
Well, if we look at the record here, the record that shows, I definitely would say I'd rather go all in on WWE at this point.
I mean, they made Brian Pillman Jr. look interesting right now.
Yeah.
In NXT. So I see, I'll go to WWE easily.
And I think, and again, I don't know Jade. I don't know her husband. Obviously, I didn't even know his name or what he did. I just knew he was successful because someone else had told me that. But if I'm Jade Cargill and I look the way Jade looks and I have the confidence in myself that she obviously has, do I want to work for a company that's owned by the largest entertainment agency in the world? I mean, she could be, if she has the ability to act, because that's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming a great wrestler is one thing, and it can help you to become a great actor, like The Rock or John Cena, Dave Bautista. It happens, right? But if I'm Jade Cargill and I have all of this amazing, the charisma, the look, the gift, I want to be over here where somebody can maybe get me a movie.
Yeah.
I bet you she's looking, I hope she's looking not past the opportunities she has, but looking at the opportunities she has, and learning how to maximize that opportunity, knowing that this guy named Rock had the same opportunity that she has right now, and he maximized it and became the highest paid actor in the world for a while.
Yeah.
And I think she has that same potential.
Definitely. Now, to flip that around to people that have recently left WWE, like Adam Copeland or Ric Flair, like do you because I remember like one of the critiques of WCW back in the day, again, it's like I'm not trying to make a comparison here, but they would say that Eric took on too many older talent. Like you got Hogan at too old of an age.
He was 42.
Yeah. So
40,
like
LA Knight is 42 and he's just getting, or whatever he is, and he's just getting his first big push.
Yeah. And like how you just said, Hogan is 42. Adam Copeland or Cope or whatever they're calling him now is 50 years old.
Yep.
And going over to AEW. Like do you think this was like a huge mistake, at least on Tony's part?
No, I look at that differently. I don't think age. I'm not as I know a lot of the dirt sheet writers or folk, and not all of them, but again, I bring up Meltzer, but you can't make a blanket statement and say, "Oh, these guys you got too many old guys."
Yeah.
Look at Christian. Christian is doing the best work he's ever done right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
For sure.
His age is not getting in his way. Adam Copeland is a phenomenal performer.
All right.
His age is not in his way. Chris Jericho is an amazing, amazing talent that has the ability to reinvent himself on a fucking moment's notice
Yeah.
and deliver great action and help the people that he's working with. It's not the age, it's how you use them. And if you bring those older guys in and you don't have great story for them, you're not putting them into an environment that's compelling and exciting for the audience because it's a great story. Then you get the inevitable, oh, he's too old.
Yeah.
It's not. Wrestler's not too old, just like a young talent isn't too young because they're in a story that sucks. It's not because they're too young and don't have the experience. It's because they're too young, they don't have the experience, and they're in a shitty story, or maybe not even a story. And you can't get over that way. So I don't think it's about Adam being too old or Christian being too old or whoever else they have on the roster being too old. I think it's going back to what we talked about earlier. It's not having an understanding of the talent because it's an art. It's not a science. It's not a math equation. It's an art, just like painting. A great painting is an art. And without an artful way of telling stories, no matter who you put in that story, how old they are or how young they are, doesn't matter. It's shitty. And the people in that story are going to be criticized.
Definitely.
Yo, I did have
Plus,
one question.
plus, I'm old and I'm old and I like to stick up for old guys.
Eric, I did have one question because you mentioned it a couple of times. The dirt sheet writers, the Dave Meltzers, you got John Rossap out there. With the way social media is right now, we're being able to see more, I guess you could say, access to rumors and behind the scenes stuff than ever before. Do you think that some of these dirt sheet writers are doing a disservice and a damage to the business in a journalistic way?
First of all, I follow Sean Rossap, and I know he's kind of a controversial character because he fires back. You give him shit, he'll fire back, and he'll give you shit back. So that kind of creates hard feelings or strong feelings, one way or the other. But here's what I found with Sean: he double checks, he does research, he verifies to the best of his ability. So in my book, I'll follow him, and I'll listen to what he has to say. Dave Meltzer is the worst of the worst of the worst. Exactly the opposite. He is doing harm to the business, and I've said this a million times. He's cancer to the business.
Yeah.
And there are guys like, Sean Rossap, I mentioned, Mike Johnson from PWI, right, Dave Shearer from PWI. Mm-hmm. There are others like them that I actually do think have credibility, and I think they help the business. Yeah. Because the more you learn about something, the more interested you can become in it. As long as you're learning facts and you're not listening to some freaky fucking 6-year-old geek who's trying to get popular by talking about things he knows nothing about. I read something the other day. Meltzer's now, referring him to himself as a business analyst. Get the fuck. This fucking guy has never run a Kool-Aid stand. Get the fuck. All of a sudden, he's a business analyst. It's like, are you kidding me, dude? Oh, I think he got tired of trying to convince people he was a legitimate journalist, so now he's going on to business analyst. He's bad for the business, but there's a lot of them that are good, Yeah. And I think that engaging the social media audience and getting them to participate and talking about the behind the scenes aspect of it's what's look, ESPN wouldn't survive if it wasn't for talking heads, sports guys talking about what's going on in the locker room and what's going on in the front office. And it's really the business of sports that keeps people engaged. So I don't think talking about those things in and of itself is bad for business. I think when you have shit stains like Dave Meltzer doing it, it's bad for business.
I must say that there's one thing I do enjoy thoroughly. Is first of all, watching you on like Dark Side of the Ring shit on Meltzer, and now being able to witness it firsthand on my platform. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Hey, if you guys need to have somebody come on and dump on Meltzer, once a month, you've got my number. You know how to find me.
It's just, oh man, between him and Al.
Somebody asked me the other day, he goes, man, it's obviously a Meltzer, and I feel bad for people that actually spend money to read his shit. It's like, wow, that's fucked up. It's like giving somebody $20 to hit me in the head with a baseball bat. Like, what the fuck would you do that for? But
Oh man.
Somebody said, why are you so obsessed with Dave Meltzer? I said, I'm not obsessed. Some people like to play golf. Some people like to play tennis. Some people like to do other shit. That's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's not an obsession. It's a hobby. It's fun for me.
I can see the Jordan glasses right now.
Yeah,
man.
right, exactly. No, I do it. It's a hobby.
Oh man.
Like,
Not-
so like, oh,
No,
you
now
gonna say
the
something?
obsession is you taking your time to defend Meltzer. That's an obsession right there. Like, how do you take time in your life? Like, why are you picking on Meltzer? Like, come on, man.
Well, that's also a reflection of what is not going on in your head.
That too.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
too.
like even going back to like just like back when you were running WCW and dealing with people like Meltzer, like how did you navigate or like around that?
Well, at first, I felt the same way I do feel right now. Maybe not as intense,
Yeah,
but I recognized him for what he was. And then this guy by the name of Zane Bresloff started working for me. Zane used to be a promoter for WWE, and then he left WWE and came to WCW. And Zane and I were really good friends. I liked Zane a lot. We did a lot of fun stuff together, and we did stuff together outside of wrestling. And he loved to go to Vegas. He was a massive gambler. Sports betting. He never played tables or anything like that.
yeah.
But he didn't drink, none of that. But he would sit down for 12 hours at a time at the sports book in Las Vegas, and he knew everybody in Vegas. So I'd go out to Vegas, and I didn't like to gamble, but I did like to drink, and I like to eat, and I like to see shows. And Zane was always able to get me comps to everything I wanted to do. So my wife and I go out there, and we'd party and have fun and do a lot of things that, quite frankly, I wouldn't spend money on myself if I had to pay for it. And Zane was friends with Dave, and Zane convinced me at one point. He goes, why don't you just try talking to him? Maybe give him a call once a week and just get his take on the show and whatever. Just quit being so combative, and maybe you guys could get along, and maybe he's going to say some stuff that you might find interesting. All right, Zane, I'll do it. So I did it for a couple of weeks, and then he went right back to doing the same stupid shit. And I'm going, man, why am I talking to a guy that's burying my product?
Yeah.
Why am I letting a guy in and engaging in a conversation only so that he can take that conversation and turn some of it around to get himself over while he's shitting on my product? And I said, fuck it, I'm not wasting my time talking to this idiot. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I went back to doing what I'm doing now. I tried really hard. Did you guys ever see the movie Billy Jack? I know you're not old enough to see Billy Jack. Yeah, Billy Jack was like 1973, 1974. It's an actor by the name of Tom Laughlin. He did this movie called Billy Jack, where he was a Native American and down in Arizona fighting against corrupt cops. And there's a scene in Billy Jack. It's a great scene, by the way. If you Google it, you'll find it. A bunch of kids that were from the reservation were in an ice cream shop. And I know exactly where this was filmed, by the way. It was filmed in Flagstaff, Arizona. And there was one of the corrupt cop's son was in this. It was an ice cream shop, bakery, or some shit. Anyway, these young kids were in this ice cream shop getting ice cream on a Saturday afternoon, and the son was a real asshole of a character of the corrupt cops in there, and he's making fun of them. And he scoops into a flour bed or sugar bed, and he pours flour all over this Native American kid's head. said, there, now you're white. And right about then, Billy Jack walks in. And everybody knew Billy Jack was going to kick his ass because he was like this karate Indian, right? He could do it. He knew his shit. So the corrupt cops punk kid, he's like, oh no, God, this is going to be bad. And Billy walks in and he goes, I try. I really, really try. But when I see what I'm seeing now, I won't go into the whole dialogue. I just go berserk, and then he goes off and wipes out about 4 of these assholes. It's one of my favorite scenes. Go check it out. Google it. Billy Jack Ice Cream Shop.
Billy Jack.
Oh,
I'm sure
man,
I'm sure my dad would definitely.
Your dad knows.
Yeah,
Okay,
I asked my
your
dad. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know Billy Jack. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
you can have
Billy
your dad
Jack.
call me. We can compare Billy Jack and others. I've been.
Oh man.
All right, guys, I got to run. I promised my wife I would do wifey stuff.
Oh no, it's all good.
No.
It's all good.
We
Like,
appreciate the time you gave us, man. For real,
Hey,
thank you.
Listen, I run out of interesting shit to say. So if you want to reach out a couple months because I have fun with you guys. I actually am having fun doing this. So happy to do it. When there's something going on that's worth talking about, reach out, man. I'm here for you guys.
Absolutely.
Oh no, we definitely appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, man.
Definitely appreciate it. Definitely check out more from Eric Bischoff and from Conrad Thompson on 83 Weeks podcast. Also, congrats on 5 years, by the way. I know you started in 2018, so congrats on that.
It's been crazy. It's just gone by so fast, but it's been fun. It's been a fun ride.
But again, we appreciate you coming through. Again, thank you for being like you are a legend, beyond words and everything. So we greatly appreciate having you on and everything. And I can't wait to do this again.
All right. Well, you know where to find me.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Take it easy now. Okay?
See you guys.
See you.
Holy shit. And that is our show for this week. You know what I'm saying?
On that note.
I'm out. Like I don't know what else to say on that note, but we'll be back again. We got WWE Crown Jewel coming up on the way. More stuff.
Are we doing the spaces for that or no?
Probably not. No, the spaces might actually be for Survivor Series because it was around the holidays and shit.
Gotcha.
But
okay, we'll get it together.
Yeah, we'll get that stuff together. But again, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Eric Bischoff for coming on to the pod. You know what I'm saying? That was our first biggest guest we've had yet since we started. What a way to start off season 4. Shout out to Corey for coming on, making that happen, making that shake. I know you busy, bro. You just had a Pistons game last night, so
Lions practice this morning, and now I'm about to get ready to go. I'm about to go change and go to the opener for the Pistons in a minute.
Yeah, so you got a whole lot going on. So thank you for taking out your time too.
Hold on, we gotta shout out one more person. Shout out to Gabby too.
Gabby was sitting in the background. Yeah, Gabby was in the back.
I've been back here chilling, just listening, happy, marking out. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Gabby was here too. So yeah, we was all in the building for that one.
Was Gabby backstage the whole time?
Yes, I was here the whole time. Mind your business, Corey. Mind your business. We'll talk in a few. No worries. I'll text you.
But yeah, everybody was here for that one, man. So of course it was very special, of course, to have Mr. Bischoff on here. And boy, oh boy, did he shot. He definitely did a shoot. I thank you.
Oh, he had his guns ready. I'm always here for Metzler slander. So please continue.
Yeah, that's gonna be it's gonna make for a very interesting week. That's for sure. Coming
very much so.
We got a lot of work. Yeah, we got a lot of work to do, man. So yeah.
But again, shout out to everybody that's gonna be listening to this, is gonna be watching this and everything in that matter. Shout out to again, Eric Bischoff, Conrad Thompson, 83 Weeks podcast. Also Strictly Business with Eric Bischoff. Definitely check those out. 2 very, very good stuff. Again, thank you to our listeners, and we'll see y'all again next week.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
All right.